All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والصلوات الله والسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك يا رب الكريم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Inshallah, staying safe. And not being too depressed by another lockdown. Some people obviously are very happy about that. Some people are gutted about that. Some kids are crying their eyes out. Some kids are delighted with their exams and all the rest of it. So it is what it is, right? But anyway, Allah musta'an. Right, okay, folks, let's cover a few sections today. Let's check out what we're doing. Not disclaimer, important announcement. No one is to mention the football or scores or anything like that. That is on a pause. There will be beats and a banning from the class permanently for life, which is obviously life of this class, which is basically going to be your lifespan, which is basically another 50 years. So let me just make that clear. Dr. Fahad, it's good to see you. MashaAllah. And that's about it. Right, okay. So the Arabic of today's subject, or today's discussion, inshallah, I reckon we've got another couple of lessons on this, on Sujood al-Sahw. Alright, is وَلَا السُّجُودَ عَلَى مَأْمُومٍ إِلَّا تَبَعًا لِإِمَامِهِ. Okay? And then we'll also do وَسُجُودُ السَّهْوِ لِمَا يُبْطِلُ عَمْدُهُ وَاجِبٌ. Okay? Alright? So, the translation for that. There is no prostration for the follower unless the imam does so. The prostration of forgetfulness is obligatory in every case where something that invalidates the prayer is done intentionally. I repeat, the prostration of forgetfulness is obligatory in every case where something that invalidates the prayer is done intentionally. That's what we're going to probably end with if we get to it. I also want to make sure that we cover the questions. I made some notes somewhere. I can't remember whether we was. I just seem to remember it, but then I dreamed to myself. Did I read that, see that? Did I get asked that? Was it in a group? Was it in a class? I get a bit confused. I think someone asked me about if you do 2 mistakes, how many do you do? Or 5 mistakes, how many do you do? And if you make a mistake which is one should be done before or after, I want to answer that again as well. But I'm not sure if I answered it in the first place. That's why I'm confused. So, I want to definitely make sure that the questions today are around the subject. I also want to say that it's amazing and a miracle to see Zafar in the class. You know, it's even bigger miracle than Jiva being in the class, and Jiva got married. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what excuse Zafar had for the last 6 months. Okay, so where are we? Right, so if we go to page 388, okay, in the commentary, where the Sheikh basically, I mean, we did start this subject last week, right? So let me just repeat that again, or summarize what we're talking about. That when you're praying behind an imam, okay, a couple of things happen, very special. The first is that they cover you for all of your mistakes. Okay, as long as you start with the imam and end with the imam, it doesn't matter how rubbish your prayer is, without a shadow of a doubt, poor quality prayer, okay? Poor quality, like, your mind's not there and you're all over the place, then that's just really poor quality. But even if you were praying that by yourself, you wouldn't have to do a sajda. But in this case, behind the imam, that's one of the blessings of being with the imam. It's almost like, people should really look to try and be with the jama'ah, especially if they've got poor quality prayers, as a temporary procedure, as a temporary fix, to make sure they get the reward of at least the effort of going there, the angels being there, meeting the brothers, the sisters, the X, the Y, the buzz, hearing the Quran, at least makes up for how rubbish your prayer is, or your concentration, or your quality, or your spiritual connection. So, but I'm talking about little mistakes. I'm talking about the kind of, you forget to say Subhana Rabbil Azim, or you forget to say Subhana Rabbil A'la, or you forget to say Sami Allah Alhamdulillah, you forget to say Allahu Akbar, of the moving takbirs. So we said that the Imam covers all these mistakes. This is from the beginning to the end. If you start with the Salah, when I say beginning of the end, what I mean by that is that you catch the first rak'ahs. That doesn't mean you have to do takbiratul ihram, Allahu Akbar, Subhanakallahumma. It means that if you catch them in Qul Huwallahu Ahad, or you catch them in ruku', if you catch the prayer, basically, where you will end the prayer with the Imam, i.e. there's no units to make up, then any mistakes that you make, you will be covered. That's one of the first lessons we learned from this, one of the blessings of this. We also learned that if you, I don't know if I covered that if you do the, if you join late, have I spoken about that yet? If you join late. Yeah, I did. So, I'm sure. I think I did. So, in summary, if you join the prayer late, then if the mistake occurs before, then it's not something which is upon your own conscience as such, or you don't know. Well, actually, let's come to that in a second. If you join the prayer late and then you make a mistake, then you have to then make up that salah, that sajda yourself. You will, and depending upon whether the mistake is a mistake which is leading to the sajda before the salam or after the salam, then you will do it yourself. Okay? And the reason you will is because you're not going to be differing with the imam. And remember that the reason that we don't do a sajda for mistakes that we make whilst we're praying the whole prayer of the imam is because the Prophet ﷺ said that don't differ with the imam. Don't change the structure of the prayer of the imam. Therefore, once you are on your own, and you are on your own as soon as the imam says salam and you stand up, and if you've got 1 to do, 3 to do, 4 to do, 2 to do, whatever you've got to do, those prayers, those mistakes now, whether you made them, here's the key, whether you made them whilst you were under the protection of the imam, or you made them in the remaining that you're making up yourself, it doesn't matter. You have to now do the sajda, because you lost the protection of the imam. And you might argue, well, hold on, I had the protection of the imam for the first 2 rak'ah when I made the mistake. Yes, you did, but it wasn't the protection and the power of the imam that stopped you doing the sajda. That's not the illah. The illah is to not differ from the imam. So therefore, almost Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed the obligation of doing it to avoid fitna and confusion. But once there's no fitna and confusion, you have to then do the sajda, if it is an obligatory form of sajda, because not all the sajdas are obligatory. All right. I think it'd be fair to say that's a summary of what we've covered so far. Now, we want to discuss a little bit of an interesting issue, okay? On 388 at the bottom, إِلَّا تَبَعًا لِإِمَامِ, unless he's following the imam. If the imam does it, then you have to do it. فَيَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ. If the imam does a sajda in the prayer, you have to do it. And that makes sense. Obviously, you're praying behind him. Why would you not do the sajda? Of course you would. It doesn't matter if this individual, you as an individual, made a mistake or not. It doesn't matter. If the imam does it, he either made a mistake which you saw or you didn't see, heard or didn't hear, you realize it or you didn't, but regardless, you're going to do it. فَإِذَا سَجَدَ الْإِمَامُ وَجِبَ عَلَى الْمَأْمُومِ أَنْ يُتَابِعَهُ. That if a person, then if the imam makes the sajda, then the follower must do it. And that's because An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّا جُعْلَ الْإِمَامَ يُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ فَلَا تَخْتَلِفُوا عَلَيْهِ. That the imam has been placed there to be followed, so don't differ from him. So for example, Shaykh says, the imam might forget Subhana Rabbi al-A'la in the sajda. Okay? And Subhana Rabbi al-A'la in the sajda, by the way, obviously there's lots of questions that I don't want to do during the class because we can do them at the end. But there are some that I see and it makes me realize that is important. About the evidence for the protection of the imam, there is actually evidence. And there are some people that said that the reason why you don't. I mean, they didn't say it's the reason, but they kind of like said it's like a supporting kind of evidence why you don't need to make a sajda yourself, and the imam covers you, because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, al-imam, I don't think was it's the hadith al-imam, it's al-imamu ضامن والمؤذن مؤتمن. All right. This hadith can be translated different ways, but the way that I translate this hadith is a famous hadith. Al-imam ضامن. The imam is the guarantor, and the mu'adhin is the trustworthy one, the trusted one, the one who has an amana, and to be trusted that amana. What is this hadith yani referring to? Many people said different things. You find this discussion when they're debating who gets more reward, because there are some scholars that said that the mu'adhin gets more reward than the imam. It's very interesting actually, because they call to Allah, and because they're so trustworthy, and because the prayer established because of them. And don't when we say that the mu'adhin is the trusted one, we're not talking about people who've got watches and got apps and things, right? So that you know what time the salah is. The only way you know that the salah has entered is purely by the guy saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And if he messes it up, or he's got bad intentions, or he's messing people around, right? Then that's the community thrown down the pan. Okay? It's not like the imam in a masjid messing up. There's people that are going to deal with him, and people know what's going on and all the rest of it. But in the community, you got the young, the old, women at home, men, people who know, people who don't know. The whole community is just waiting, and waiting to see, are we in or not? Do we start eating or not? Siyam, right? Finish eating or not? The Fajr Adhan, etc. So the people who do the adhans must be very, very trustworthy, very, very trustworthy. All right. Al-Imam Dhamin, you can take so many different. A guarantor, dhamin means he's got your back, basically. That would be the literal dictionary definition of the protection. He is the one who protects you. When we say dhamin is the one who puts the collateral forward. So if you take a loan and you say that he's my guarantor, he's the one who's covering you. So if you mess up, he pays. Likewise, if you mess up, then he pays. So that hadith is definitely in play when it comes to covering mistakes. But the majority of scholars from a legal point of view use a hadith that we said that do not make a difference with him, because it doesn't have to be one or. These are the hadith which are in play. Anyway, so the imam is a protector, and he's protecting you as long as you're praying with him. But once you become on your own, you've lost the protection of the imam, and also you are not differing from the imam. There's no fitna now. Everybody's gone. You're praying by yourself. Nobody's hanging around. Nobody's going to be confused, for example, and call you fatan, and you are a fitna maker if after the prayer you do now 2 sajda, or before, by yourself, right? All right. So for example, the Shaykh says that if the Imam forgets to say Subhana Rabbil A'la in his sajda, you've got no idea whether he said it or not, because you don't hear that, okay? So suddenly, in the prayer, just before the sajda, because he's left out a wajib, he's going to, before he says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah at the end of the prayer, he's going to go Allahu Akbar and go into sajda. At this moment in time, you are also obligated to fall into sajda and follow him in that. Okay, and I think I might have mentioned this last week as well. All right, al-imam dhamin wal-mu'adhin mu'taman. Yeah, you see, subhanallah, I memorized this hadith like I don't know how many years ago. One of the first hadith I memorized this, and I remember that in the hadith it has the plural of imam. Jazakallah khair, Zakaria. It is in the dua, Allahumma arshid al-a'imma waghfir lil-mu'adhdhinin. Aywa. That's the one. Sick ones. I knew that there was a jama' in there. Yeah. So Allah then said, so the hadith, the imam is the guarantor, the mu'adhin is the one to be trusted. Oh Allah, guide the imams and forgive the mu'adhineen. And that dua is also apt. Allah guide the imams to make sure that they understand what's going on, make sure that they appreciate this responsibility, that they take it very, very seriously. That rushd means maturity, knowledge, guidance, everything. وَغْفِرْ لِلْمُؤَذِّنِينَ. I love this part. Okay? Forgive the mu'adhineen their mistakes, because they will make mistakes, because it's not an exact science. Alright? You see, now you're getting me in my tangents now. I've been making this point for a long time, right? In fiqh salah, especially in al-Maghrib, right, class? And then maybe when we talk about times and stuff, about the whole fitna. I mean, alhamdulillah, can you guys believe, man? I mean, we're 3 months away from Ramadan. Can you believe it? And it's going to basically be in spring. I mean, April 13th. I mean, that's spring, innit? We are proper out of summer. Now, I don't know about you lot, right? But I can tell you now, it feels like last year or the year before that we were proper in the middle of summer fasting. Missions, long hours, headache, all the fitna about time and all the rest of it. We are now going to finish at the beginning of May. We've now moved finally from the fitna of the summer persistent twilight, right? Persistent twilight, which happens obviously when our northern latitude is so high that during the summer from mid-May to August, the angle of where we are on the globe is so high relative to the sun that it's always constantly, it's always constantly, what's it called? There's a perpetual level of twilight, right? And so, meaning it's never fully dark. So, we've discussed this until the cows come home, so you can go and review all of that. Anyway, but my point is that it's stunning what I believe is the correct solution, and a couple of scholars, versus those that are going 18 degrees and saying that, even though outside you can't see anything different, and they 18 degrees solar elevation angle means that you start fasting from 1 o'clock and all the rest of it, and it's got to be done by the time. And listen, we're saying, sunnah, guys, Linda, lick it, honey, Linda, lick it. By the way, honey, Linda, lick it, hick it, love it, lovely, Hinda, listen, has been replaced by, oh, hi, mommy. Oh my God, give me 3 of those for dessert. Give me 3 of those. Oh, hi, Emmy. Oh, hi, mommy. Oh my God. Be still, my heart. I need a few more younger kids, man. We need to just have a word with the missus, man. What's going on? Honestly, for dessert. Oh, hi, mommy. I just want to say to you, by the way, there is a universal hatred against broccoli from all right-minded, sensible people. I am in full support of that. All of my greatest videos that I've ever shared in my life have been against broccoli. Never has broccoli served me well. Although there was one video which I shared on Facebook which had like about 20 million views. That's no exaggeration, by the way. 20 million, maybe even 50 million. In fact, it got so silly that I've completely forgotten. However, that was because the girl liked the broccoli. Or was it Brussels sprouts? It was something horrible anyway. She kept pushing away the chocolate, and she took I can't remember the thingy. But anyway, oh, hi, mommy. Oh my God. Oh, hi, mommy kaputar. Right, anyway. So, you see that the Prophet ﷺ, okay, I love how Solange is like, listen, I'm not interested in this nonsense here. Let me write down an essay for a question. Which has completely gone, by the way. The screen is gone. I mean, I've got a massive screen. That question is gone. It's disappeared. It's gone. Alright? It's gone. Nobody cares about your question. No idea why you put it in. Why did you not put it at the end when it would be looked at and seen? And I know that Solange Yani is a big fan of turning food around and blaming it on the cooks and whatnot. That's true. Bro, even I will eat flipping broccoli if I dip it in chocolate sauce. If I get any chocolate truffles like this, yeah, that's actual pure truffle, by the way. I eat truffle like that, okay? I don't mess about. I'm not on a diet right now. I'm depressed, yeah. I'm eating. Bro, can you stop posting your questions, Solange? Are you absolutely serious here? Right? Anyway, so if I was getting, and this melts, by the way, like melts. It's so soft. If I was to get broccoli and clean my plate, I'll eat your broccoli as well, Solange. So don't talk to me about, depends upon Michelin-starred chefs and how you cook it. Like, what, bro. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that if it is tanned, it becomes pure. Some scholars said that that's even the case for pigskin. If you give me Brussels sprouts and broccoli and God knows what, karele for example, and I absolutely zap the life out of it, okay? Because it melts, Zakaria, it melts. You should know that if I'm not going to be eating crisps except from a bag, you can obviously use your brain, yeah? And realize I'm not going to be eating chocolate with my fingers, right? Come on, bro. Right? It's truffle. It's expensive French truffle, yeah? From the people who care, by the way. I didn't see any of you tight packies care, right? People who care, who send things from far. I respect that behavior. I did touch it and it just melts in my fingers. Bro, it was cold from the fridge and it melts. Proper. You see, Rehan knows. Quality truffles melt with crazy on the fingers. Have to use a spoon, bro. I'm like learning as I go. Anyway, I'm just glad that Solange will never win this point. Everybody can make rubbish food, horrible food, disgusting food, and poisonous food taste okay by doing crazy things. If you put flipping nuclear energy into a Brussels sprout or karela, it's gone. It's dead, innit? It's flipping dead. Even I could eat karela and if I dilute it to 0.01%. Right. Anyway, all of you always distracting me. This is why I ignore the comments and we ignore everything. Okay? So I was saying that it's a sunnah to take it easy. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam actually gave the job of the mu'adhin to someone who was blind, who would add to ask other people, and people are saying you got to see this, got to see that. Bro, just chill, man. It's a rough idea. That's what it is. You can't be someone who is messing around. But if you see something and not sure, and he goes, yeah, I think that's it, and he calls it, and it's a bit early, Allahumma ghafir al-mu'adhineen. There's the dua. You see that? Allahumma ghafir al-mu'adhineen. There you go. I love that. Anyway, so okay, I think we covered that. Subhana Rabbil A'la. All right. For example, he misses it out, then you do the sajda. Okay. لأن الإمام. Right. Now, and that's pretty straightforward because the mistake was leaving something out. And the sajda is before the salam. So that's straightforward. Sheikh asks a question at the top of 389. He goes, but what about if the sajda is after the taslim? So you're now all sitting there in a jama'ah, and we're not talking about you starting the prayer here, because if you started the prayer, then of course, because if you started the prayer with the imam, let me just make this clear. If you start the prayer with the imam, and the imam says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you are also meant to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You don't wait. Like you see, we've covered this obviously in a couple of years ago, that when the imam says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, then Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Like if you look at the Shafi'is, for example, in modern, not the fiqh of the madhab, but in the Egyptians, for example, they will wait for the imam to say both of them before they get involved, right? And that's of course wrong. And then you got the Hanafis, and again, not the fiqh, but the modern day Hanafis, who are like, they're doing it before the imam does. Imam says Assalamu alaikum, and they like that, and then they're like that. So we said the sunnah is to follow. So as soon as he says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, we also go Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So obviously, if you start the prayer with the imam and he gives salam, then you're going to give salam with him. So the imam will say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, so you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Then he's going to go Allahu Akbar. That's when you go, oh wow, right? At that moment, you're like, oh. So then you also then go into sajda. But what if you've got prayer to make up? What if you are late to the prayer? Okay. What if you've got to stand up now? Well, according to the Hanabila, and according to our author, and actually according to many of the fuqaha, you would do it. According to many of the fuqaha. And that's why he says, ظاهر كلام المؤلف, that from the apparent statement of the author, and we were talking about al-mu'allif, it's always, as I said, the author Imam al-Hajjawi, that you would have to make up the sajda, you'd have to do the sajda even if it's after the taslim, even if you have got the prayer to make up, okay? Even if you've got the prayer to make up, okay? And this is, as he says, وَهَذُا الْمَعْرُوفَ عِنْدَ الْفُقَهَاء. And this is like well known with the jurists, well known position. Okay, no, I mean when he say fuqaha, you know, he's kind of talking about the classical scholars, and he's talking about all of the different ones from the different madhahib as well. He's not sticking only to the Hanabila. And I want to say that this is a position of more than just the fuqaha of the traditionalists or whatever, but also contemporary scholars as well. For example, his colleague Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz alayhi rahmatullah, Ibn Baz also said the same, that if it's after the taslim, you've still got something to make up, then you would also do the sajda with him. But nearly all of the scholars who say this, they add the caveat. They basically make the situation the same as if you were praying by yourself and you forgot to do the tashahhud and you stood up. Remember we did that in detail? So we know that if you're closer to sitting down, you stay, and if you're standing up, then you know you should go back if it's good or not. If you've started reading the Fatiha, then it's game over, you've lost it and it's gone. You remember all that discussion? Confirm that you do. So they said it's exactly the same. So if the Imam said Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and you sprung up, yep, you don't want to waste any time. Soon as he said salam, the prayer is finished, I'm getting up now, I've got to make my own, and you stood up, and the Imam might do a real slow one. He might say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Allahu Akbar. Bro, that's 5 seconds, man. In 5 seconds, it's very realistic that someone's actually stood up and started their Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. You know, making up the thing. So nearly all of them said that when you are that person who stood up, it's too late now. And now you don't go back and sit down. Now you don't go back and sit down. Just like you wouldn't go back for the tashahhud. And you, after the prayer is finished, yourself will do that sajda after the taslim. So they say that. But the majority of the scholars don't even get to that. Don't even get to that level, right? The majority of the scholars are, if if he's sitting down or near sitting down or halfway up, then he goes back down and does the sajda, and that makes sense. It makes sense because you've got to follow the Imam. However, Sheikh Uthaymeen, in what can be considered to be an almost unique position, okay, what can be considered an almost unique position, says that no, the Imam is not to be followed here. And so therefore, when the Imam goes for Allahu Akbar, whether you are standing or you're sitting or whatever, you will stand up. Now you can see that that's a shocking sight, because they're still in the prayer, quote unquote, right? They're in the sajda, but they're in the prayer. And you've definitely differed with the Imam, right? You've definitely differed with the Imam. But the reason why the Sheikh is saying that position, he's saying because if you think about this logically, it is untenable. He says impossible, but he goes, it's untenable for you to do that, because that means that you are exiting the prayer. Because if you are, remember by the way, this is important. You know when we talk about the sajda before taslim, after taslim, when we're talking about an individual person praying alone, it all makes sense. When you're praying behind the Imam, some people think that before taslim is obviously straightforward, but after the taslim, people think that they don't make salam. That's not correct. Now, I know that it might be the case that in real life, in practicality, nobody makes salam because the Imam does it very quickly, right? But that shouldn't be the assumption. The assumption should be that when you are with an Imam who has made a mistake that requires a sajda after the taslim, so we know that that's if he adds a rukn or adds an action to the prayer, or he had some doubt and he fixes himself up after tahari. So in these two scenarios, so he's now doing the sajda after the taslim, okay? So he will have to give taslim first. When the Imam gives taslim, you should be making taslim. There is no justification from the sunnah for you to just be sitting there, all right? There's no justification whatsoever. And also, no reason. This idea of waiting for 2, waiting for X, waiting for Y. So, when the Imam says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you should also say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And Shaykh Uthaymeen, based upon that completely acceptable and indeed the correct action, is saying, well, hold on. How are you saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah? You are not allowed to intentionally exit the prayer in the wrong place. Because it is the wrong place for you. Because you've still got prayer to pray remaining. You came late. Remember, we're talking about the guy who came late. Remember what we said. Don't get confused here, because it is already confusing and it's difficult to explain. But if a person started with the Imam and ends with the Imam, we said there's no issue there. You make sajda with him before and after, not a problem. But if you're late and you've missed rak'ah and you've got to stand up, well, hello, if you're standing up because you're still in the prayer. You can't exit the prayer. If you give salam with the Imam, you've exited the prayer. Now, we know, I know, you know, everybody knows. A lot of us people do that. A lot of us folks do that. Now, when I say we do that, I mean by that, let me talk about the two different people. Let's start with the original one. If you are a person who has started the prayer with the Imam properly and all nicely and everything, you know that many of us will be praying. The Imam's made a mistake. He will say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And before we've even got the chance to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, he's already gone into takbir, Allahu Akbar. And therefore the majority of the people go in to the sajda. Do you agree with me on that? Let's have a vote, okay? Tell me yes many times that he's given the salam, but I didn't. Either because I didn't know or it was too quick. It doesn't matter the reason. I'm going to show you something as a result of what you say, okay? About why, I'm going to, just make a few points. But you're going to see, all right, that most people, anecdotally, I think the majority of people actually either don't know or they make the mistake. Now, I want you to know that the correct way, as the majority of you are obviously all saying yes, okay, the correct way is that you have to give salam. Okay? You have to give salam. If you don't do that, or you think you didn't do that, what you've done is turned the sajda into a sajda before taslim. You've just done that. Yani unwittingly. Which all goes to show what a blessing and what a great statement it is from the scholars to say that there is a consensus that if a sajda is done in the wrong position, one that was meant to be done before but done afterwards, and one done afterwards done before, then it is to be pardoned. It's not something it's not something which you need to repeat the prayer from. So ironically, it never mattered in all of your lives that you did it wrong. That's the theory. All right? It's basically, even though you were meant to, the fact is that what harm did it do? It ended up that you did the sajda technically before and he did it correct. The Imam, he did it after. The Imam covers your mistakes anyway. Is it a mistake or not? Who knows? So it's not a biggie. You get my point? Now, that's fine. But correctly, what are you meant to do? Correctly, there's no doubt. You're meant to do it after. You're meant to do it after the taslim. And not the Imam's taslim, your taslim. Because there's no differentiation between the two. There's no hadith that says Imam's taslim. It says after the taslim. So Imam is meant to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And you're meant to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And then you both, just like in the hadith. Remember, by the way, we don't have a single hadith of the sajda being made after taslim. In an addition, we have the hadith in Tahari, but I mean in an addition, when there's been something added to the prayer, okay? Except that the hadith that we have all had everybody give the salam. Think about that. So the fiqh that we have today is based upon hadith where everybody gave the taslim. And not just that, they're chatting. They're like, what's happening? Yes, you did make the mistake, etc., etc. You get what I'm saying? So everybody has now given that taslim. So now if you think about your own action of you not making taslim, you're not even doing it properly if you think about it. Would you agree with what I've just said? All right. So at least we can agree that the correct way, if you're doing it after taslim, is to make the taslim, you've done the taslim, and then you do it. Now, my point is, it doesn't matter if you didn't or not, the Imam's covered you anyway, and if not, the Imam has not covered you, if you don't believe the Imam covers you, then the statement of the scholars that doing it before or after covers you. So, now, let's just take one example here. I've always done the taslim with the Imam and then done the sajda with the Imam, but the correct thing is to do that or not? Of course that's the correct thing. Well, who said it's not the correct thing? I'm saying that the incorrect thing is to not do that. But even it being incorrect is not a major, because everybody does it, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Now, but intentionally, what should we be doing? We should be making that taslim. All right. This is I said very clearly, you are lost because people are not listening. I said this is concerning a person who has started the prayer with the Imam. Okay? Started the prayer with the Imam, got nothing to make up. He will give the taslim. All right? And not just say, oh, the Imam's done the taslim, that's enough. Okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Whatever the Imam does. If the Imam is on a one taslim opinion, one taslim. If the Imam is on a two taslim opinion, where he goes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Allahu Akbar, then you are expected to do two as well. But like I said, it's not a major, even if you didn't do any of them. All right? But that's what you should hope to do. Now, let's go back to the scenario of the guy who is late, missed part of the prayer and needs to stand up. Sheikh Uthaymeen is like, well, hold on. If you're going to do this properly, you have to do taslim with the Imam. If you're going to do this properly. And if you do taslim with the Imam, then you are exiting your prayer. You have invalidated your prayer because you've done it intentionally. And that is something that cannot be covered because it's a rukn. Because when it comes to the issue of the Imam protecting you against certain things that you miss out, he can never protect for you missing arkan. Alright, so you have to do arkan. So if you follow the position, of course, that Surah Al-Fatiha is a rukn, and you didn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha in Dhuhr prayer, for example, and at the end of the 4 rak'ah, you started with the Imam and everything was great, okay, and at the end, when you're just about to give salam with the Imam, he realizes that, oh, I didn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha. It's going to take guts now because everybody's seen you. I mean, you might even be a front line guy right behind the Imam and you've got lines of people behind you. Oh my God, nightmare scenario. Oof, that's going to take some cojones, I tell you right now. So he stands up. If he stands up, the reason he's standing up is because he has forgotten a rukn. A rukn meaning like Surah Al-Fatiha. Okay? And therefore he's going to stand, and because we know that you can't make up for rukn without doing the rukn and then doing sajda, he will stand up and he will do the Fatiha and everything that follows it, because that whole unit was cancelled. Okay, and then maybe even more, obviously if he missed it in the first rak'ah, he'll have to do the whole prayer again, and if he missed it in the fourth rak'ah, then there's just one, then he'll do sajda 7. Okay. So anyway, Sheikh Uthaymeen is saying that if you now give salam after this Imam, okay, you've now intentionally validated your prayer. You can see that this is like a kind of strict position. And that's why it's a super minority. It is held by very, very few scholars, frankly. Very few. I mean, the logic is clear, right? The position is clear. It makes sense what he's saying. To an extent. But the fact is that we could say to him, alayhi rahmatullah, worst case scenario, so he did the salam and he did it extra. If you do a salam in the wrong place, absent-mindedly, or because you weren't sure, or because you were following the Imam, then that in itself will require a sajda. So, Sheikh says it is muta'adhira. He says it is impossible, right, to do that sajda. Well, we'll say, listen, I mean, it's not that it's impossible. You shouldn't do it. But it's not like it's impossible. If you did it, then it's the same as for the. It's the same as, you know, when you've got the imam now has not made a mistake. You came halfway through the prayer. How many times has this happened to all of us, folks? Yeah, answer this question. We've got 2 rak'ah to do. Completely lost our minds in the prayer. Imam says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We also say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And what normally happens is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then you stand up. So you do the old shrug of the shoulder because you realize that, hold on, I've got 2 left. So you stand up, right? That's the blag that I do anyway. I always go Assalamu. Oh my God. So in this scenario, okay, what are you meant to do? You have added to the prayer, folks. There's nothing else here. And after the salah, you will give taslim, okay, and you will then give the 2 sajdat sahu, because you have added to the prayer that extra taslim. You get what I'm saying? Okay? Right. Now, if you are behind the imam, okay, and you have come late and the imam now does the salam and you now do the salam, but you are still sitting there. And this is why I don't subscribe to Shaykh Uthaymeen's opinion. The class position, by the way, is the position of the majority. And I say that you can almost argue out of laziness as opposed to yeah, I need legal excellence. But frankly, I have studied this in a lot of detail previously, and I reviewed it right now as well. I didn't see anything to the level that I want to satisfy myself, frankly. I would want to see, right? I would want to see, what do you think I was going to draw? Am I an artist like you was? I'm going to draw a person? Yeah, come on, bro. I can't draw. I can't even write on a whiteboard, let alone draw. Anyway, what I want to say is that out of laziness, or I should say the default position, the fact is, whether you give the salam or not, okay? Like, just think about this aqlan, yeah? Let's say I did give the salam, because I saw the imam give the salam. Let's go through all the scenarios, right? The scenarios for a person who's come late to the prayer, who's got a couple of units to make up afterwards, and the imam has made a mistake. He goes Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and he wants to do sajda after the taslim. Let's go through the various scenarios. What's going to happen practically? A, you are going to be sitting there saying, I'm just going to wait for the imam to finish and I'm going to stand up. You knowing everything that's going on and you're not giving the salam. That's completely fine. That's a good position to be in. So in that scenario, you're sitting there and you're just waiting. See, that's why I don't look at the thingy screens. Honestly, this boy. Right, anyway. You're sitting there and you're just watching everything and you've seen them go for sajda and you're like, you're in control. You haven't given the salam because you're intending to stand up, but you're doing it nice and slow. All right? Now, the second scenario is that you stood up immediately. So you waited for the imam to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and you stood up immediately. A third scenario would be, I'm not doing this, you don't need to write this down, we're just having a discussion here. A third scenario would be that you forgot that you've got prayer to make up and you also said Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah with the imam. And as soon as you said that, you're kind of starting to remember that you need to stand up, but you did give the salam. A fourth scenario is that you believe that you should do the sajda with him, right? But being the pack that you are, you didn't make the sajda, you didn't do the taslim anyway. So he's doing it after taslim, you're waiting to get up, You realize that he goes down for sajda. So just like you've done all your life, you go down for sajda anyway, without making taslim. Now, ironically, Sheikh Uthaymeen doesn't cover this particular scenario of this guy. You see, Sheikh Uthaymeen sticks to the proper way and is assuming that these people who cannot make this sajda with the imam after the taslim, he's assuming that everybody knows that you got to make the taslim yourself and you exited from the prayer. The truth is, as I put forward to you, and as anecdotally, certainly we've got it, right, is that the majority actually don't even say salam. And if you didn't say salam, then you haven't exited from the prayer. You turned his after the taslim sajda into a before taslim sajda for yourself. So it doesn't even matter. And that's why I personally believe that the fuqaha almost adopted a quote-unquote lazy position in this, because very few of them, certainly from what I've read, and very little reading, frankly, that I could have done. I could have done a lot more, but I'm not going to waste my life on this because I don't think it's so important. And it must be there somewhere, but they didn't cover for all the scenarios that we're talking about. We're going into far more detail. They didn't make the differentiation. They didn't mention that he gives taslim or not. For their assumption, you've made taslim as well. For their assumption, it happens so quick, right? Honestly, Imam sometimes says Islam. Sometimes the Imam, he's so embarrassed about it that he just goes Assalamu alaikum, Allahu Akbar. You know, he makes it like a short one, and his proper one is the one that he does after the sajda. He goes Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum. It's almost like, well, you know, I'm going to have to do it again in a minute, so I'm going to just make this a quick one. Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum. You get what I'm trying to say? Anyway, having said all of that, okay, let me summarize, because people are all, you know, they're saying they're confused and they're confused. I'll make it just nice and simple. The majority of scholars consider that the imam must be followed in a sajda, whether the imam does sajda before the taslim or after the taslim. That's it. It doesn't matter whether you've got prayer to make up or not. If you've got prayer to make up, you do the sajda with the imam, and then you stand up, and that's the end of the prayer. That's it. Like I said, I can give you the baby version. That's the baby version. I went into detail to give you some of the meat. Okay, and obviously the devil's in the detail, isn't it? Yeah, it gets confusing. All right, you don't need to re-watch, rewrite, nothing. Is that simple. Sheikh Uthaymeen says, no, you can't do that. He says that the reason you can't do that, no problem if it's before the taslim, because it's in the prayer. No problem if you started with the imam, etc. But if you are someone who's got prayer to make up, how can you do a sajda after the taslim with the imam? Because that will mean you'd have to exit from the prayer. So he's just keeping it real. Okay? And so therefore, honestly, Solange, the reason I ignore this question is because I've answered it maybe 3 or 4 or 50 times, I think. Okay? I know that people keep talking about it has to be twice and not. I said that it doesn't matter. 1 is the asl, 2 is not obligatory anyway. So it doesn't matter. When the imam does 1, that's the only thing that matters. Meaning, if you're doing it by yourself, I said the class position, that is after 1. Okay? But if you are with the imam, it doesn't matter whether the imam does 1 or 2, you are following the imam. Okay? Right. Anyway. What was I saying? What was I talking about? I don't know, man. This is the problem with questions that I keep repeating. You know, if I ignore a question, there's a reason why I ignore a question. I don't want to answer it. Realize that. I can see everything. Don't keep repeating again. I've said put the question at the end. Okay? I think that what I want to say is that I think Sheikh Uthaymeen, basically, he sees it that surely if you're doing it after the salam, you're having to exit the prayer. So if you're having to exit the prayer, okay, then if you're having to exit the prayer, then you've messed up your prayer, and how can you be doing that? We'll say, okay, logically you're right. But considering that doing the sajda before or after is not a major, and considering that most people don't even get the time or the wherewithal to know that they're meant to make the salam as well, whilst the Imam has done it quickly and then gone into sajda. And considering that the vast majority of fuqaha, modern and contemporary and old and traditional and classic, okay, and the madhahib, consider that you got to do it even if you did do it correctly and give the salam. So we're going with that. And it's lazy. And I said that before. And Sheikh Uthaymeen's is technical and correct. And if someone followed it, respect. So if you're following Sheikh Uthaymeen's position, what does that mean? This is what it means. It means that if you join the prayer late and the Imam, you notice that the Imam goes Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and goes for sajda, you will ignore it. You will stand up, you will finish off your prayer, and then at the end, after you give one salam, okay, the taslim, right, you will then go into two sajda, copying basically what the Imam did. Alright? That is what Sheikh Uthaymeen's position is. Our position, the position of the majority, the position of the Hanabila, okay, is that you will do the sajda with the Imam, even if you've got prayer to make up, whether you gave salam or not. Because, like I said earlier on, even if you gave salam and you exited the prayer, like Sheikh Uthaymeen has said, well, guess what? This is a bit bad to say, but the sajda that you're just making is covering up for it. So this sajda, these two sajdas of mistake or forgetfulness that the Imam is doing because of some mistake that happened in the prayer, okay, whether you realize that mistake or not, you're just chucking in another mistake for free and it's covered. Yani, that's why that's why I don't think it's a very serious issue. So even if you give salam or you don't give salam, the majority say you would do the sajda with the Imam, and then when the Imam sits back up and then the Imam says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to end the prayer completely, then whether he says it once or twice, whatever, at the end of the prayer, that's when you stand up and then make up the remainder of the prayer. And at the end of the prayer, your prayer, will you do anything? No, because you did it with the Imam. Simple as that. You see, I can make this as easy as possible or as complicated as possible. Okay, I don't think I need to repeat this anymore. The class position is exactly what the text says. There is no prostration for the follower unless the Imam does so. If you read that statement, it means that you do it before, you do it after, it doesn't matter. You do it whether you give the salam, don't give the salam, forget the salam, you don't know the hell what's going on, it doesn't matter. You just make the sajda with the Imam and that's it. Okay, and this is only, of course, if it's obviously if the Imam makes a mistake, yeah. If the Imam makes a mistake. Now, if you're praying behind the Imam and the Imam doesn't make it, doesn't make a mistake, but you make a mistake, I think we covered, yeah, that you will have to do a sajda yourself. Yeah, so you finish the salah with the Imam stands up, you will also stand up afterwards. And then you will then finish the salah. All right. What else can we say? Before we take some questions and sort of stuff, let's finish off at least this section. So, إذا كان سهل الإمام في إمام الله من صلاة قبل أن يدخل. Okay. So, Sheikh wants to kind of discuss a few points, right? So, just gonna go cover these points quickly on page 390. He says, so for example, if the Imam forgets in the prayer and he makes 2 ruku', for example, in Salat al-Dhuhr, in the second rak'ah. So instead of going 1 rak'ah, 1 ruku', he does 2. Okay? And you were part of that, meaning you were joined the prayer and you saw that, okay? And you were part of it. Then you, according to Sheikh Uthaymeen, will need to make a sajda when your prayer is finished. Why do I say that? This is the assumption. A, that you are late and you've got more prayer to make up. You're going to stand up afterwards. And B, that you know that when you add an action to the prayer, the sajda is afterwards. So, according to Sheikh Uthaymeen, you will not do the sajda with the Imam. You will stand up and you'll make it yourself. That's what Sheikh Uthaymeen is saying. The majority, the rest of us will say that when the Imam goes down for the sajda, we will, because he will do it after the taslim, as is correct, we will also go down as well, and then we'll stand up and then we'll make up the rest of the prayer ourselves. Okay, Sheikh then gives another example. He goes that the Shaykh, the Imam, add a second ruku' in the first rak'ah, and you weren't there for that. Okay? You entered the prayer in the second rak'ah. Okay? You entered the prayer in the second rak'ah. So Shaykh says, فإنه لا يلزمك السجود لأن الأصل وجوب السجود هنا كان تابعا للإمام. Okay? So here, this is very interesting. Okay? Sheikh says that in this scenario, this is a sajda, first of all, that's going to be done by the Imam after the taslim. After the taslim. However, whilst you're sitting there and you see this Imam go down for the taslim, you're going to say to yourself, for these 3 rak'ah that I have been with the Imam, there's not a single mistake that he made. Okay? And he didn't make a mistake. And so therefore, his mistake, or his addition, he didn't make a single addition. And you can see the problem with Shaykh Uthaymeen's position here, but we'll come to that in a second. He didn't make any addition. So this must have happened in the first unit that I was not there. So when I was not there, that's when the mistake occurred. Okay? Right. So therefore, you do not need to make sajda. Neither with the Imam, because that's his position anyway, but also when you stand up and then you finish your prayer also, because you are not connected to the Imam's prayer anymore. So why are you having to make a sajda for the Imam's mistake? Okay? Now, I actually agree with this position. I agree with this position. But the fact of the matter is that if I am going to make sajda with the Imam anyway, then it doesn't matter. And also, how are you going to know what he actually forgot? How are you going to be able to work out for certain? Now, I remember Shaykh Uthaymeen being asked this question in his Majmu' al-Fatawa. Okay? What if you do not know? Sometimes you're going to make a guess, sometimes you're not. Shaykh said, of course, if someone ihtiyatan, out of caution, just assumes that it happened whilst he was praying, then that's safer. But he's speaking from a legal point of view. Legally, if for certain you knew, yeah? Like, I'll just give you a hypothetical scenario. The Imam, remember again, when we say after taslim, in our minds we're thinking immediately. The sunnah actually means like a couple of minutes afterwards, because we're trying to work out where the mistake was. So imagine that you're there. Imagine you're one of these guys who's a very slow mover. Okay? Imagine you're a slow moving guy. The Imam goes, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Guys, did I do 2 ruku' in the first rak'ah? And they go, you did, you know. That's all happened in 5 seconds. Alright? You're still there, like, finishing, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana fil akhirah, and you're getting ready to stand up. And you've actually caught 5 seconds of a conversation. So you now know for certain that, hey, I came for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I missed this first rak'ah. This is what Shaykh... So this is also a legal position that Shaykh Uthaymeen could be describing. It's very, very, very real. Meaning we don't need to make it imaginary and all the rest of it. So he's right. But so meaning that now you know that the mistake wasn't with you, but the mistake was in the first rak'ah when you weren't there. So now technically Shaykh Uthaymeen is saying now, and now as you stand up, a bit slow, a bit late, but now that you stand up and you finish off your prayer, you do not need to make the sajda that they're going to do right now, neither the one by yourself at the end. But then he covers himself and says, listen, because if you don't know, you're not sure, then if you do the sajda, then it doesn't really matter. Okay? And when he says that, he's still sticking to his guns, not with the Imam, but he's talking about afterwards. So when you stand up to complete your odd unit, you should then do the sajda as well at that moment, when you finish at the end, out of safety. I hope that makes sense, folks. Please tell me that makes sense. Okay. This is my opinion, Shaykh Uthaymeen says in this issue, but whereas the author, what he's saying is that you follow the Imam after the salam, whether you caught the mistake, didn't catch the mistake, understood where it was, didn't understand where it was. In all scenarios, you're not there to work things out. You follow. And listen, I'm with that as well. The truth is that that's the easiest, simplest position for you to be sitting there trying to work out, did you catch it, not catch it, was it something that I was aware of, not aware of? Yani, okay? Let's just carry on and finish up. إذا كان المأموم مسبوق وصح في صلاته والإمام لم يصح. So, yeah, I think we've already said that if an imam makes the mistake, if you make the mistake with the imam, you don't need to then do any sajda. But if you make a mistake whilst you are separately praying, whether you made it during your prayer or after the prayer, then you got to make sajda. I think that's clear. Finally, Sheikh says, what about someone who you're praying behind the imam and he doesn't consider the sujood as-sahw to be obligatory for the thing that you do? So, for example, at tashahhud al-awwal, if you leave out the tashahhud al-awwal, then the majority of scholars say that you got to make a sajda sahw before the ruku', before the taslim. Sorry, yeah. But there are some scholars, Shafi'i in one position, doesn't consider it obligatory, and that's because of some ta'wil and some interpretation. Okay, so for example, it's not obligatory, so he doesn't do it, and you, like the majority, no, the hadith is clear, have to do it. Obligatory. If you miss out the obligation, like a tashahhud, the first one, then you got to make it up. What do you do here? Does the ma'moom make a sajda even though the imam hasn't? So he hears the imam say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, so he cheekily does his two sajda before. Does he do it afterwards? He says, well, I'm not going to cause fitna, but I'll just do it on the sly. What does he do? Shaykh Uthaymeen says no, he doesn't make the sajda at all, because al-imam, that's his position, and it's a valid position. There is some ikhtilaf on the issue, and your prayer is linked to the imam's prayer, and the imam has made that decision, and the imam is covering for you. The imam is the dhamin. It's not some batil yani fantasy. This is a well-established fiqh yani position. So, he didn't make a mistake. He did it knowingly. That's a very important point. It wasn't some kind of error or forgetfulness, which is different. He did it knowing it's not obligatory for me. I'm not going to do it. Not a million miles away from the idea of someone who wipes over socks. There are a number of scholars that don't accept that. Wiping over socks, they said no, it's got to be leather khuf, not socks. This person didn't do that automatically. He followed the position that it is permissible to do so, and the prayer is absolutely valid behind that person without any issue. However, if the imam does see it as obligatory and he forgets to do the sujood, then the fuqaha alayhim rahmatullah, as narrated in Al-Muntaha with its commentary, the ma'moom should make the sajda only if he genuinely thinks the imam's not going to do it. If he thinks, nah, it's not going to happen. He gives him a chance, right? He waits. And then the salam goes. He might even say, you know what? He might do it afterwards, so I'm just going to wait. And he waits. And at that moment, he would do it. Okay? Whether he does it before or after, that's a practical consideration. But he would do it, because the imam forgot. But these are also kind of like hypothetical ones, because really you could also then finish with the imam and say to the imam, hey, do you know that you forgot to do this, that, whatever? And he'll say, oh yeah. Now at that moment there's no possibility of doing the sajda before taslim, so you'll do it there and then. It now automatically becomes after taslim. And again, that's another reason why there's a lot of flexibility on the issue of when should it happen, before or after. So I hope that all makes sense. Okay, that that the ma'moom, if he does it after the salah because he was waiting to give it a chance, I think that's good, even though the mistake that was left out would have indicated that he should do it beforehand. But he's with the imam, he doesn't know, the imam might do it, the imam might have a different opinion, do it afterwards. But if the prayer finishes, doesn't do it, then he should say to him. And if the imam doesn't do it, refuses, and he knows for certain that it's a mistake, the guy praying behind, then he does it himself. And Allah knows best. All right, folks. That's yeah, that's yani what I wanted to say. We'll now cover hadith and all the rest of it. You know, by the way, we're talking about Bismillah. By the way, Mrs. brought home some J2O. They're on offer at Tesco's. I don't know how much J2O cost. Yeah, anyway, they're £6 for 6, or I don't know how much they are. Whatever they are, they're horrifically overpriced. All right, whatever they are. But if I remember correctly, I think that the offer is £3 for 6. So maybe they're from a pound, they've gone down to 50p. Anyway, I drank one because she got me one, and now I know why they're on flipping offer for 50p. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say. Save your money. J2 Bakwas, not J2O. J2 Bakwas, yeah, it's called, number one. Number two, it was called cherry flower something and spice flavor. What a complete waste of a glass bottle. They could take that glass bottle and make you 10,000 vaccine vials out of it. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Can't wait to smash a Diet Coke. It's going to happen in a few seconds. Okay, never liked it. Even the orange one, never liked it. Never liked it. Now let's discuss. I was going to just say some notes. I know Sarah's rushing thingy, but Sarah, just wait a bit, okay, and we can share your notes in a second. You need to know that you might be thinking, how on earth can the Shafi'i school and some scholars consider that there are some sujood that are not obligatory, or that is not obligatory? How did they come to that position when the hadith is very clear? Well, in actual fact, there are some hadith that state that let him do the sajda, or let him do the sajdatain, and it will be for him a nafila. It will be for him a nafila. Now, some scholars understood nafila to mean voluntary, and that's why, or supererogatory, and therefore not obligatory. But actually, the correct understanding, if these hadith are authentic, which I don't think they are, I don't hold them to be authentic, but let's play advocate and say that the hadith are authentic, then we want to say that nafila means rewarded, because there is a space for that in Arabic language. When we say something is nafila, it means rewarded. So they are obligatory and they are rewarded. They are obligatory and they are rewarded. By the way, this is only for when you add something to the prayer. That's where the flexibility is. Almost every scholar considers it absolute obligatory to do sajda sahwi for matters of doubt or when you miss an obligation. So let's be very clear on that. Yeah, I want you to know, if you think about this just logically, that makes sense. Because if you have a deficient prayer, it makes sense that you've got to fix it with something. But if you add something to the prayer, okay, if you add something to the prayer, then you've done the original prayer. You just did a bit of extra. So it can make sense that I don't really need to do the sajda. And there are quite a few scholars held that position. They didn't obligate sujood sahwi if you added something because you done whatever. Even if you did a ruku', even if you left out a rukn, you're going to end up doing the rukn and extra. So I just want you to know that you need that bit of flexibility in your minds. Another thing that I wanted to just finish off with is because someone asked last week, how do you do, and they asked today as well, I saw it earlier on, Aisha Dawood actually, she said, how do you do the sajda? I think that's what she asked. How do you do it? And I've described it, but I just want to mention a few things about the ones that we know, that we are used to, and what it is that we are saying in the class. When we are saying that the sujood is done before the taslim, okay, or after, it doesn't actually matter. There's a huge number of scholars, not the majority, but, or maybe even could be argued the majority, and they all differed on what were the key parts of the sujood sahwi. Do you need to do the taslim for it or not? Do you need to do Allahu Akbar for it or not? Is the Allahu Akbar part of the sajda, or is it just the two sajdas? Yeah? And the most differed over is the tashahhud. Should the tashahhud be recited or not? Like we do, like all the packs do. Like I like to hear from the Shafi'is, by the way. I think we did. I think we asked this question, right? That the Shafi'is also do the tashahhud, but certainly the Hanafis, the packs, everybody does that. And the reason that is because of the hadith which is narrated by Imam al-Tirmidhi, and it is the hadith of Imran ibn Hussein radiallahu anhu, and it states that the Prophet ﷺ forgot something in the prayer, and so he did sajdatain, then tashahhada, thumma sallamat taslimatain. Yeah, or kama qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yani the Prophet ﷺ forgot in the prayer, so he did two sajda, then he recited the tashahhud, and then he gave the salam. Imam al-Tirmidhi says this hadith is hasanun gharib. This hadith is good, but it's odd. Okay? And there's a huge discussion we're not getting into now about, what does that even mean. But there is criticism against this hadith. A number of the muhaddithin consider this hadith to be weak. Okay? This hadith to be weak. If this hadith is weak, then it's the end of the discussion. The hadith is not an evidence, and then that's it. There should be no tashahhud. However, huge number of scholars acted upon this hadith. They took it as authentic. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu from the companions, most of his students like Ibrahim al-Nakha'i and all of Ahl Kufa and Iraq and so on. So we're therefore talking Ahlul Ra'i, all of them. So I'm not sure about the Malikiyah. Zakaria can maybe tell us about the Malikiyah. Okay, do they do tashahhud? I think that they might, but I've got some doubts about that. But certainly Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf, Al-Thawri, all of Iraq, all of the scholars, the Shafi'is as well. Okay, a number of scholars. As for the rest, there is no tashahhud, and they either said no tashahhud, the hadith is weak, or the hadith is not weak, right? The hadith is not weak, but is al istihbab, because we have so many hadith far more authentic, as Ibn Qudama said in Al-Mughni, far more authentic, far more in number, that don't mention a whiff of the tashahhud, not a single thing. And so therefore, when you have a hadith which comes and says you do it, the hadith is either automatically shadh, is odd, and the odd is always kicked out and made something considered to be weak when it goes up against the authentic, or you try to make jama', so reconcile. So if the hadith is authentic enough, then we say, let's take this hadith and put it with the rest and try to make it okay. The reconciliation here is that it's okay for you to do it, and if you do it, it's fine, but the sunnah most of the time is not. The actual way to do it is not, or it's not obligatory for you to do. And so you can take any of those positions in between. Our class position, the humbly official position, the evidence-based position, there's no doubt. There is no tashahhud. And therefore, so when people ask me, but of course if you do it, it's not a major problem at all. Alright? But our class position is, if you are going to do the sujood sahwi, this is how you would do it. You've now finished Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr wa min adhab jahannam. I'm at the end of my salah. I'm just making my final dua. I've done my tashahhud, done everything, and I forgot tashahhud al-awwal. I forgot my first tashahhud, so I now need to make sajda before the taslim. Okay, so I've now finished my prayer, and before the taslim means I will not now say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I will say wa min adhab al-qabr wa adhab jahannam, ومن عذاب شر فتنة المحيا والممات ومن عذاب شر فتنة المسيح الدجال. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى. الله أكبر. ربي اغفر لي ربي اغفر لي. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. The things to note here are that what you say in the sujood as-sahm is exactly the same as what you say in the normal sujood. That means the takbir carries over, Subhana Rabbil A'la carries over, Rabbi Ghafirli carries over. etc., etc., etc. And that's an ijtihad opinion, but that's our position. Allah knows best. All right. If it is after the taslim, you added something to the prayer, you missed out a rukn and therefore you had to go back and make it up, and then you added extra things as a result without even intending to, or you had some doubt and you thought about it, then you realized you got it right, you did tahari, it is after. Then as you come to the end of the prayer, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, once is sufficient. If you did twice, that's okay as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, but once is sufficient. Allahu akbar, subhana rabbiyal a'la, etc. Allahu akbar, rabbil ghfir, Allahu akbar, etc. Allahu akbar, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. No tashahhud ever needed. Always going to have to make taslim twice after each sajda that you do, whether you did it before or whether you did it afterwards. That's it. This is the 5th time that I'm demonstrating this. I will never demonstrate this again. Okay, folks? I'm a very, very charitable guy, but I'm also, an impatient one, or I don't know what the word is, and I start to get a bit irritated. I try not to, because it's not good. It's not good optics. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. Wallah, it's not a good look. But I'm only human, and it starts to get irritating when I get the same thing again and again and again and again. And I ask your forgiveness in advance. I'm not the nicest of people. There are people who are far better than I am, and it just is what it is. I have some issues. All right, folks. Now you can ask your questions. Now you can paste what you want. I'm just going to go to the long-held terminology question. I thought it had been buried. I don't even know, man. That's too much writing. Okay, if a late person who missed at least a raka'ah, makes a mistake after doing a sajda as-sahwu with the imam, what do they do? If a late person who missed at least a raka'ah makes a mistake after doing a sajda sahwu with the imam, makes a mistake after. Oh, right. Sorry. I'm with you now. Sadia, yeah. You will do sajda. You're saying is it possible to do 2 sajdas? The answer is yes, because that was for the mistake with the imam, and you decided to go with it. If you followed Sheikh Uthaymeen's position, you would only end up doing 1, because you wouldn't do it with the imam unless you did it before sajda. If you did it before sajda with the imam and then you made one yourself afterwards, then you would do it, and Allah knows best. Okay? Allah knows best. Hamza says, for the ma'moom who is late for the prayer, he performs sajda with the imam and then makes up the rest of the prayer. Does he also perform sajda at the end? No, he doesn't. And if so, then the sajda the imam doing with the imam is not hukman, but only does to follow the imam. No. He doesn't do another one. Okay? Right, that's different from Sadia, obviously, because you did a mistake in Sadia's one. Right. Ibrahim says, our family is praying in Jama'ah and my husband said the salam after the second rak'ah of Maghrib. I automatically said Allahu Akbar to remind him he missed it. Paks love that, isn't it? Okay. Once we completed the prayer, he said I should have said Subhanallah, which he's right. Did I mess up my prayer if I did that? You made a mistake. Did you mess up the prayer? No, we've already covered that, right? We said that sometimes even Allahu Akbar is required if a person's not catching on. Here, you made the mistake by assuming that he wouldn't realize. All you needed to say was Subhanallah. So you do not need to repeat the prayer. The prayer is not invalidated. We said that those statements which are, if you go back maybe 5, 6, 7 lessons, those legislated statements from the prayer that are said in the wrong place do not obligate sajda as-sahwu, let alone repetition of the prayer. So, and it's also from the kind of jins of the salah as well. And we said that you can even speak in a salah, and if there's a real need to it, whatever. And we even said that, if the person's not getting it, he's saying Subhanallah, 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 then you might recite the ayah for him. You might even say Allahu Akbar, or you might even say Sami Allah, you would try to help a person. There's space for all of that. Okay. Hanifa, oh my god, right, here we go. Hanifa says, the screen moves so quickly. Right, ask me a question. She has istihada and was wondering if she has to change her tampon for each salah. She makes wudu for each salah but doesn't change her tampon if the pad is clean. If the pad is clean, then of course she doesn't need to change it. Okay? I don't know why you're sorry for this question. This is the time it needs to be asked. Now, on the issue of wudu for each prayer, that's the position of the majority. If she does that, that's fine. Wudu and istinja for each prayer. In my position, you don't need to, and you can look on the group and someone will post the article that I've written about that, because there's not many that I write, but when I do, then it can be referred to. So check that out, okay? But yeah, now if it is soiled, there's no doubt that it's best to replace it. But if it's not been soiled, there's no reason to change it. Absolutely not. Okay. For the dua at the end of the salah, Hanafis usually go with Allahumma inni dhalamtu nafsi. That is authentic, absolutely. And as we've covered, Rivers, and you need to revise this section, Rivers, okay? Right? You need to ask very politely, or you need to go... No, you don't need to ask politely. Go and put some effort in. Find the notes. We covered the issue of dua before taslim in huge amount of detail. Very important for you to read. All du'as can be used there. Lots and lots of du'as. Allahumma inni dhalamtu nafsi is the best out of all of them. Once I exited, Maryam says, the prayer, I realized I missed a rukn straight away. Shall I enter the prayer with takbir at ihram, or should I go straight to that position? Straight to that position, Maryam. Okay, and then sujood sahu at the end afterwards. Sarah, I'm not going to answer your question until... I'm not going to read your summary until I ask all these questions, because I have to close my mind down, yani, when I'm reading your stuff. Sahar says, I know that when you... Right, we're 1 hour 55. We need to move. Alright, no more questions, guys. Alright? No more questions. Don't ask any... Nobody write any more questions. I know that when you add any action that is from the genus of the prayer, you do sajda as-sahw after the taslim. But what if you repeat statements due to doubt? So as I said before, you don't need to do that. Okay? You don't need to. You have to go back to the section. Go back, Sahar, to the section that we covered. Alright? Add any action, yani, out of mistake, meaning like you did 2 ruku' or something like that. Yeah. But if you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, then you're right, absolutely. But if you were not sure that you recited, okay, then this comes under the issue of doubt. Okay? If you're not sure. That's the same as did I do... It's like same as anything. The hadith of doubt is about that. Okay? So that will be before. My mother has dementia and she's forgetting. She was telling me that she wants to remove her hair from her private parts, but she has forgotten how to do it. Is it allowed for me to remove it for her? Or is she forgiven for doing it? I need to think about that. There's no doubt that she's forgiven. That's not the difficult part. The difficult part is it better for you to do it or not? Is the hurma of the area greater, or is the requirement to do a sadaqah and an enjoining the good more important? My heart says that you'd leave it, but I need to think about that. Okay? Allah knows best. I need to think about that. A woman has the habit of 7 days, then white discharge, followed by 1 or 2 days of brown, and istihada kind of blood, then again. Yeah, correct. You have to go by the nature of the blood, the menstrual blood only. It doesn't matter about what happens afterwards, whether it's brown or white or red or istihada, X, Y, Z. White discharge happens 2 times, 3 times. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the blood that looks, smells, feels, all the rest of it like thingy, like hair. Yeah. Since you said I should have said subhanallah, I assume it's okay to say subhanallah. Oh, you're absolutely right, Ibrahim. You shouldn't have said subhanallah. Actually, you should have clapped. Okay, you should have clapped. Correct. I don't know why I said that. That you should. So I was thinking of you as a guy. You should have clapped. But anyway, I also think, as I covered this, I can't remember when, but I believe that if a woman says subhanallah in her home, yani with her mahram, I don't think it's a major problem. I think it's okay. All right. Harith, yes, I think that Ethereum is allowed to invest in. Okay, no problem at all. All right, good. I close then with just a little read of what Sarah has said. If one is continuing their prayer after the Imam ends the Jama'ah, one is totally responsible both for the individual part of their prayer and also for any mistakes one may have made whilst following the Imam. That's correct. The illah for this is that one should not break from the Imam or change the structure of the prayer whilst following the Imam. So when one is no longer following the Imam, they should do the sajda for any mistakes they make during all their prayer. Correct. If the Imam does the sajda before the taslim, the follower must do the sajda with the Imam. If the Imam does the sajda after the prayer, the follower must still do the taslim and then the sajda with the Imam. Yeah. Correct. The majority and the class position is that if one has to make up raka'at after the Imam finishes because they joined late, one must make the sajda with or without the taslim with the Imam and then continues the prayer. Very good. The majority and the class position is one gets up quickly and starts one's Fatiha before the Imam has gone into the sajda, then one does not have to go back down and do the sajda with the Imam because he's already stood up. But they must do the sajda at the end of their Fatiha. Correct, because they didn't get it to do it. They didn't do it there. Sheikh Uthaymeen almost uniquely says that you should not do the taslim or the sajda with the Imam in the scenario of a mistake after the taslim, and instead you get up and continue your prayer. Then at the end of your prayer you will do a sajda as the Imam did when you were with him. Correct. If you become certain that you were not there for the part of the prayer which the Imam made the mistake, you do not have to make the sajda. Correct. Note for flexibility, there's a consensus that sajda is necessary for reducing from the prayer and doubt, but some scholars hold that if you add something to the prayer, it is considered a nafilah and there is no sajda necessary. That's a minority position, and we say it just for the sake of completion. Additional notes on how to do the sajda. The class position in Hanbali school, there is no tashahhud after the sajda. Correct. And you say the same things as your normal sajda, and if after the taslim, one taslim is sufficient before going into the sajda, correct, 2 taslims after doing the sajda, regardless of whether it was before or after the prayer. That's very good. That's very, very good. The Sarah, it's a good kind of summary. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khaira. Alright folks, just one other thing. For those, it doesn't even apply to Manchester, but obviously Manchester are having this class this week, and there'll be a few other classes now starting up. I'll be doing also a class soon as well at the end of this month, going into a few. So make sure you get on that train. The first one is by Sheikh Sulaiman Hani, very important class on atheism and on Tawheed. But actually the class is on Tawheed, right? Essential, because obviously the dumbest people on this planet, the dumbest of all dumb people, atheists, are now getting a lot more air, are putting a lot more they're getting their game together in terms of their fitna. So Signs is that class. Go to almaghrib.org, and if you can take it, then he teaches it very well. Professional kind of guy. He's very kind of Yasir Qadi-esque, very on time, very all the rest of it. Yeah. So that's not this weekend, I believe the weekend after. Yeah. So it's done over 2 weekends. It's nice and easy, 4 hours. There you go. Fatima has posted it as well. Okay. And there's some discount as well. All right. There you go. Adil, sounds good. Adil, let us know some feedback on the group about that. Fatima, please post that on the Telegram group and say that I asked you to do that. In fact, I'll do that actually. And that's it. But yeah, I would yeah. All right. Rehan, you never beat me in go-karting. What are you talking about, beat me in go-karting? Nobody's beat me in go-karting. Oh, he beat me in go-karting. Haha, he did. Hold on. Guys, you see, I was going to end the class. I was going to be all good. But now, okay, now you're taking liberties, all right? First of all, however, Sulaiman Hani, he beat me in go-karting. And you know why? Because I was twice his body weight. Are you flipping kidding me, bro? The guy's little like Yani. He's tiny. He's the size of my thigh. Okay? Bro, when you got course that you got to go up Yani a hill in a small dinku little car. Right? You know what I mean? So people just need to calm down. So of course he's going to beat me in flipping in thingy. I'm twice the body weight. Look at Lewis Hamilton. Bro, they weigh like 30, 50 kilos, bro. And in a race, they lose like 10 kilos. Oh, shut up, man. You lot are waste men. Right, all waste men, the lot of you. Yallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.